Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
Cook Inlet Tug and Barge is a marine transportation company specializing in harbor services with a primary marketing focus on the Port of Anchorage, providing their customers with quality-based service specifically tailored to their needs.
The National Weather Service.
Hello everyone, and thanks for joining us for today's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy. On the satellite, you can see a pretty good system here coming across the Bering Sea with a lot of the moisture pushing across into the western Gulf of Alaska, Kodiak Island, some pretty good rain today, and also some gusty southeast winds ahead of that front, 15 to 25 miles an hour there across Kodiak Island, and there are actually gale warnings out tonight for the Barren Islands on up into Kamishak Bay as the main low center back out through here, having come across the Pribilofs, comes to the east and follows that in behind. So those winds coming up already will continue up to about gale force for the night tonight and then drop back tomorrow. Break out here to the west with some pretty gusty winds, 25 to 35 miles an hour across the Pribilofs today from the north and northwest, and that blowing down across the Alaska Peninsula, but already beginning to diminish this afternoon there across the southeast Bering Sea area. Light winds from Unalaska, well, actually into the central Aleutians light winds. Had some northwesterlies here for the Fox Islands, and then some more rain and fog out towards Shemya. Up in the interior, a lot of cloudiness scattered around, a lot of clouds with some showers scattered around the area. Not much in the way of any thunderstorm activity at all, and just some pretty good showers that moved up across northern Cook Inlet earlier today, and those have lifted northward, and some gusty south winds along the Copper River as high as 25 miles per hour, and just some variable clouds with isolated showers over the southeast coast with sunshine down here over the southern areas. Allowed temperatures to warm into the 60s. Not a bad day up on the North Slope, partly to mostly sunny skies there. This front right through here, approaching from the west, that's going to bring small craft advisories into the western coast there tonight, 30 knots, maybe gust 40 miles an hour there as that front approaches this evening. And then those will drop off, turn northwesterly as the front moves through after midnight. But kind of a showery pattern here over the interior with most of the rain here, Kodiak Island up into Bristol Bay in this area. And that spreading over some good showers this afternoon. Cordova, Valdez, Seward, all reporting rain this afternoon. Then tapering off again, not too bad over the Panhandle, but this whole thing is heading right for the southeast coast. On the chart today, you can see the front up here to the northwest coming in, and expect those winds to pick up this evening if they haven't already. And again, kick up to about 30 to 40 miles an hour in gusts, good for small craft advisories out of the southwest there, but lighter winds off to the east. And again, we had the showers, isolated thunderstorm activity over the interior, but this system down here to the south, rain, Kodiak Island, the front already across the Alaska Peninsula. That took the rain south of the eastern Aleutians today, but some clouds hung up on the northern shores there. Same thing with the Alaska Peninsula with some shower conditions and those gusty northwest winds in the Cold Bay area. High pressure out here over the Bering Sea, that's going to be shifting eastward. And again, that's already starting to drop the winds off over the Pribilofs there. And then that next front bringing more rain and fog into the southeast coast. For the forecast tonight, this low center by about 3 or 4 a.m. in the morning should be east of Kodiak Island now. So it's going to rain tonight and then begin to taper off later tonight. And again, the gale force winds, Kamishak Bay up into the Barren Islands and back to the Barren Islands. And small craft advisory winds for the North Gulf Coast, 25 to 30 knots tonight, late tonight and tomorrow. Not too bad here across the Panhandle, just generally fair, partly to mostly cloudy conditions. Should be dry. This front spreading the rain inland. And again, those south and southeast, southwest winds will turn northwest when the front moves through and diminish. So a band of rain from Barrow back across the Seward Peninsula and to St. Lawrence Island. Look for a break here over the southwest interior, at least dry conditions, maybe some clearing, scattered isolated showers over the interior, but also some clearing conditions that we're already seeing over the eastern Tanana Valley, all the way up into the Yukon. And then we'll see for tomorrow the low pushing eastward, but looks like the rain showing up along the coast tomorrow afternoon with some scattered showers over the interior, but looks like the heaviest rain will stay off the coast until tomorrow evening. Then we have this front back here to the west, some cooler air coming down from the north around the high that's just west of St. Lawrence Island. So look for some showers there over the Brooks Range, isolated thunderstorms, mostly in this area from the western Alaska Range on up to the north, possibly into the Koyukuk Valley and back out toward Norton Sound. The most likely area to see some isolated scattered thunderstorm activity there. Partly to mostly sunny over the eastern Tanana Valley with a few showers to the west there, and not too bad. Much drier day for Bristol Bay tomorrow than what you saw today. High pressure coming in, northwest flow there, and also beginning to dry out over Kodiak Island. Maybe some clearing showing up over the southwestern part of the island. But the flow around this low will keep the lower flying conditions in across Fognac Island, possibly all the way down to Chiniak Bay, probably through at least the morning hours, and then look for it to improve thereafter as this all begins to shift into the southeast coast. And we have this weakening frontal system out here coming across the Aleutians and the Bering Sea. That'll bring a chance of rain into probably Nikolsky, and maybe not on Alaska or Dutch Harbor. Look for some partly sunny skies, light winds for the Alaska Peninsula, pretty good conditions, light winds, maybe some clearing there for the Pribilof Islands. Most of this moisture on the light or showery side here, mostly kind of a convective in nature on up to that low center, and this main low hanging back to the west. And then we'll see for Friday that front finds its way up to the Alaska Peninsula. So that will result in at least some periods of light rain at times. Wind shouldn't be too much of a problem at all there. Really not much of a gradient at all with this. Probably won't even be small craft advisory winds with that, but definitely lower ceilings, better chance for rain all the way up to Chignik. And Kodiak should be partly to mostly sunny. Light winds for Friday, and then rain, Pribilofs back into the Aleutians, a lot of showers and clouds out in that area. And now this front pushing eastward, so that should take a band of rain with it eastward across the Tanana Valley and the Yukon there, all the way down to the Alaska Range, and then clearing out behind the front with some scattered showers, but it'll be a noticeably cooler air mass here, especially back to the northwest where any elevation at all, and you'll have precipitation in the form of snow, Brooks Range, and possibly back even along the Arctic coast. It could be cool enough for some light snow up there, but nothing accumulating. And otherwise, thunderstorms possible from the Wrangell Mountains, eastern Alaska Range, right up in advance of this front. Then showers or periods of rain with the front itself. A weak low developing over western Prince William Sound. Mostly cloudy, a few scattered showers here, Copper River Basin down into maybe the Kenai Peninsula, but basically dry for Cook Inlet, maybe some moisture working into the Susitna Valley in the form of some light rain. And then this upper trough now sliding into the southeast coast. The heaviest moisture will be down over the southern areas. Moderate to heavy showers, diminishing late in the day, just scattered showers up to the north, and the heaviest precipitation will probably slide in just to the south across Dixon Entrance and the Queen Charlotte Islands. Temperatures today down in that area with the sunshine, mid-60s, 64 there at Klawock, 59 Sitka, 56 at Wrangell, while Juneau had 57, Sitka up to 56, and Yakutat 57 degrees. Cordova rain and 51, and Anchorage 58 degrees. Kenai had 59 and a 61 down at Seldovia, 54 in Kodiak with moderate rain, 2 miles visibility, ceiling 500 feet. Otherwise up at Fairbanks, 61 degrees there. Nenana had clear skies. Northway was 61, I believe, but Delta there with 55. Up into the central interior, mostly in the mid to upper 50s, more clouds, scattered showers around. But there's Fort Yukon with 61, and 66 in Northway today. Eagle had 63. Arctic Village up to 52, same thing at AKwx. And 40 at Barrow, or otherwise much of the north slope in the Arctic coast in the upper 40s to mid 50s, mid to upper 50s here up over the northwest interior. About the same for the Seward Peninsula with Nome at 56 and 54 at Galena. Tanana 58 today, McGrath 59, same thing over at Anvik there, 56 St. Mary's and 58 at Unalakleet, 57 at Macoriac. While Sleepmead also had 57, 60 though at Bethel, and a 55 out at Gamble and St. Lawrence Island. Mid-50s for the Perbolofs today, about the same here along the Bristol Bay area, although Dillingham 52 degrees and Iliamna up to 58. Mid to upper 50s for the Alaska Peninsula, same thing for the eastern Aleutians, and actually 50s all the way out to Shimia. For the lows tonight, upper 40s to lower 50s for the entire stretch of the southeast coast there, and upper 30s to near 50 for the Copper River Basin across much of southern Alaska. Generally in the 50s, though, lower 50s out over the Bering Sea and the Aleutians, and temperatures down into the mid 30s up over the Arctic coast and the northwest areas as well. And then the highs for tomorrow, you can see the warmest conditions here from Bristol Bay, lower to mid 60s, and then through the Tanana Valley up into the Yukon, look for about the same temperature range there. Cooler to the south and southeast in the upper 50s to lower 60s, and quite a bit cooler back to the northwest there with the central and western Arctic coast highs forecast in the upper 30s. And some of that cooler air is sliding southward there. You can see getting into the Seward Peninsula, but Nome should still reach 51 tomorrow. No change for the Perbolofs and the Aleutians. Flying weather with that front coming across, IFR, quite a bit of it with it coming in, edging into this coast throughout the day tomorrow. Conditions deteriorating over the central and northern areas and taking a little longer down here to the south with IFR back across just about all the Gulf of Alaska right up to the Kenai Peninsula, Prince William Sound, and marginal VFR Cook Inlet right up to the Alaska Range there and areas of the Copper River Basin. Then a break right through here, and with the front up to the north there, areas of IFR, then clearing out to VFR back over the Seward Peninsula and to the northwest, and then another trough coming down, bringing some more marginal VFR into the western Arctic coast. Marginal VFR with some breaks out here over the Bering Sea, then lots of IFR with that front pushing eastward in toward the Fox Islands. So it passes AKwx, IFR at times, maybe becoming marginal, and Adigan starting out VFR and then possibly becoming IFR, or more likely marginal, but it could become IFR tomorrow afternoon. And Lake Clark and Merrill, western entrances, marginal VFR becoming IFR or trending toward IFR conditions, or just trending downward from what you have in the morning there on the western entrances. Otherwise, both Lake Clark and Merrill looking at kind of a marginal VFR day through those two passes. For rainy though, IFR may become marginal in the afternoon, but expect some IFR conditions there and either approach anytime throughout the day tomorrow. For windy, marginal VFR trending down toward IFR conditions throughout the day, and Isabel, marginal VFR, and Mentasta looking pretty good here. VFR possibly becoming marginal on the southern entrance tomorrow afternoon. For Tanita, marginal VFR possibly becoming IFR, and for Portage, IFR for that pass there. Chilkoot and White, maybe a little too optimistic here. Could start out VFR and then only become marginal tomorrow afternoon. May hold the IFR off to the south, but generally downward trend in the ceilings of visibilities for even those two passes, but they may stay VFR or marginal and not become IFR. For the freezing levels here, cold pool, that upper low, that's today over here, shifting into the Gulf of Alaska tonight and tomorrow, and the front pushing into the southwest coast, and much warmer air mass here out over the Aleutians, up to 14,000 feet there. Much cooler condition here dropping into the northwest part of the state, 6,000 feet coming all the way down to about Nunivak Island, and 2,000 feet into the western Brooks Range, and even down into the Seward Peninsula tomorrow afternoon. Actually, those are for tonight. And for icing, with the front coming in, areas of moderate or isolated mixed, areas of light to isolated moderate rime or mixed icing here with that front, and then some showery conditions out in advance of that, and areas mostly above 5,000 feet with the freezing levels coming down and that pushing in toward the southeast coast. Tomorrow afternoon, could be some areas of moderate rime icing up along the North Gulf Coast in areas and back across mainly the eastern Kenai Peninsula. Kilbrook Mountains could see a little bit of icing. Not much of this front at all, but possibly back out over the western Aleutians. Upper level wind flow chart moving along pretty well here in the southern branch with a upper low earlier today in the Bering Sea moving to about this position tomorrow afternoon. Pretty good jet coming through the Aleutians with that, and then the northern branch up here carving out a trough into the western interior first, but that whole thing will be moving eastward on Thursday and Friday and into the weekend. For the 9,000-foot winds, pretty good cyclonic flow there up over in the northern third of the state, or almost down into the interior there. This trough moving to the south, southeast winds 25 to 35 knots there for the North Gulf Coast. Lighter across the Panhandle, and the good northwesterlies there on the back side of that with a high pressure building up to the west. 3,000 feet, 20 to 30 knot northwesterlies, southeast winds up to 35 there. Pressing in toward the Panhandle, coming back up along the North Gulf Coast, and the low center there up over the northwest interior, 15 to 20 knots around that. So turbulence-wise, moderate chop along the front there, pushing in up along the coastline here. Kodiak Island, those northwesterlies following in behind, diminishing here over the western areas, and then some more turbulence pushing into the central Aleutians. And after the break, I'll be back with the marine forecasts.
Thanks for joining us for another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Dave Snider, and joining us today is Eric Stevens from GINA, the Geographic Information Network of Alaska at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. Thank you for joining us, Eric.
My pleasure, Dave.
Thank you. And you're joining us here to talk a little bit more about satellites and how satellites work, and especially one neat feature that's working over Alaska right now. What is that?
Well, there's a lot of weather satellites and a lot of instruments on these satellites, and there are new generations going up and new instruments. This includes something called the Day-Night Band, which is not a cover band at the local bar, but it's a new satellite that is very useful, especially here in Alaska, especially in the winter.
In the wintertime, yeah, that makes it a little bit hard to use some of the normal tools that we associate with weather satellite imagery.
Right. You know, one of the classic weather satellite instruments is just visible light. What would the human eye see if you were riding on a weather satellite yourself and looked down and it was black and white? You'd see the clouds reflecting the sunlight. And we've got an example from the Pacific Ocean. There's a geostationary satellite, and we can see that the eastern side of the image is in daylight. The western side, it's night over there, so you don't see anything because there's no sunlight over there. And visible imagery, it's very intuitive. You see the clouds just like you see them standing on the ground, but now you're a satellite seeing them from above. But the problem is, what about the night side of the planet? How do you track the storms? How do you know where the rain is, the snow, the weather, if you can't see the clouds? And that's why, just like a television can change from one channel to another, or a radio can change stations, satellites can change the frequency of the electromagnetic spectrum that they're looking at. We can go to infrared instead of visible light. You know, it's heat energy. You can see heat, and we've got another satellite picture from the same time, same satellite, out over the Pacific Ocean. That's the infrared side. And we're seeing temperature there. And even at night, when there's no light, everything still has a temperature.
So we're sensing something with a thermometer instead of perhaps the visible side of that, is what you're saying?
That's right. On this depiction, colder features are lighter shades, warmer features are dark. And so clouds tend to be colder than the ground. Clouds are higher in the atmosphere, it's cooler. And so that very same image on the western, or the left-hand side of the globe, now we can see the clouds there, even though it's nighttime, because we're seeing the temperatures. And one nice feature is that tropical storm there, just in the middle of the northern hemisphere there, hurricane or typhoon, depending on...
That's that swirly part that we see in the middle of the image?
There you go. You can even see the eye on it there, especially in the infrared image. So we've got two kinds of imagery there from the same satellite, different instruments, you know, different channels like on a television, visible and infrared. You know, it turns out there's no one magic tool. Each has its strengths, each has its flaws, weaknesses. The visible is nice, it's intuitive, it's easy to understand, but doesn't work at night. Infrared is nice, it works at night, you can see temperatures, but there is a catch. what if your clouds and the nearby bare ground or open water, what if those were about the same temperature?
Oh, that's going to be hard to figure out what's going on.
If you can only see temperature and you have two features that are the same temperature, they will look the same. You won't be able to tell. They're camouflaged. This happens, it can happen around Alaska, especially over the ocean when you have low clouds that are the same temperature as the open water.
That happens quite a bit in Alaska. Yeah.
We have an example. Now, this is from a different geostationary satellite. It's down over the Atlantic Ocean. Look in the South Atlantic. In infrared, we've highlighted in a yellow circle there. There's some patches of clouds, but it looks like there's a clear area in the middle of that image.
Sure. Yep.
That's the infrared look. But let's take a look at the visible channel, and we can see there's a stripe of clouds across the middle of that circle that is only visible in the visible.
Okay, right.
The trick here is that those are low clouds of about the same temperature as the surrounding ocean. So from an infrared point of view, where you're seeing temperature, the clouds in the water nearby are the same temperature, they look the same. It's only on the visible that you can see what stands out as the actual imagery.
Okay.
Two tools, each have their strengths and weaknesses. Can we combine them? That's where the day-night band comes in.
Oh, okay.
It's a super sensitive visible sensor that can actually see by moonlight. It can even see the aurora.
Wow.
And in Alaska, we have long winter nights. We can use that day-night band. Here's an example from that storm that blew the Kulloch drilling platform ashore near Kodiak Island in December back in 2012. This image is right near when that storm happened, and it's in the middle of the night in December.
This looks like visible imagery.
Looks like daytime imagery. It's amazing. That sensor can take any little bit of moonlight and just make the most of it. We can see so much detail. Even in the northern part of the image there, you can see some aurora up there. The northern lights
That's that band that goes across the Arctic slope?
You got it. That's the northern lights. We're seeing black and white image here, so you don't get the green or the purple colors there. But that is the aurora. There's another example of the day-night band, and this is from January of 2013. It's about 4 in the morning, and this is a snapshot from Weather Service software. And we can even see in the middle of the image, there's the lights of Fairbanks and North Pole over to Eielson Air Force Base. Anchorage and Matsu lights, city lights, are evident as well. We can see, even though it's 4 in the morning in January, there is no sunlight to be had, that just enough moonlight is available that this sensor can see that. So we're trying to solve that puzzle where visible light is good, but only during the daytime. IR is good at night, but you can't see the difference between clouds and ground sometime. The day-night band is an attempt to do the best of both with one tool. And it's brand new for Alaska here, and we're hoping to use it in the forecast process and help predict storms, weather patterns, to help get good forecasts for people.
Okay, another tool in the weather toolkit for meteorologists in Alaska and researchers worldwide. Thank you so much, Eric, for joining us today. And you can learn more about GINA and the day-night band by going to the web address that you see on your screen. For Alaska Weather Facts, I'm meteorologist Dave Snider.
Welcome back. Looking at the marine forecast, winds becoming southeast and on the increase. Small craft advisories here for the north coast, and south 20 knots on the south coast, but those will probably pick up to 25 knots late tomorrow afternoon. And the inside waters, southeast 20 and south at about 15 there for both north and south Lynn Canal. Then for Friday, kind of getting variable up here over Lynn Canal and Glacier Bay in these areas. Southeast 15, central inside waters, southeast 20. And then small craft advisories now mostly along the central coast, a little bit lighter to the south and east up here for the north coast. For the North Gulf Coast, 30 knots out of the east tomorrow with small craft advisories all the way back into the Barren Islands, which will be gales tonight, as well as the Kamishak Bay area, then coming down to 15 tomorrow. Northwesterlies, 25 knots on the east side of Kodiak Island. Southwesterlies, 20 for Shelikof Strait. Northwesterlies coming down to about 20 knots through the Barren Islands. The light winds from the west, 15 for northern Cook Inlet. Light and variable Prince William Sound. Westerlies now for the North Gulf Coast, but light. And then for Bristol Bay, west 20 knots, northwest 20 for the Bering Sea side of the peninsula. Northwesterlies, small craft advisory, northwesterlies here for the Alaska Peninsula right up to Sitkinak. And for Friday, much lighter winds, south to southwest at 10 knots for the peninsula, really light for Bristol Bay. predominantly northwest and westerly southwest of Kodiak. The Aleutian, south 20 knots here in the western areas. Central Aleutian, southwest 20, and south to southeast 15 to 20 knots for the Fox Islands. Friday's outlook southwest, they are 15 to 20 knots. Westerlies at about 20 through the central areas, northwest towards Shimia. And for the Bering Sea, variable winds for the Pribilofs tomorrow. West 15 here across the northern Bering, right into the southwest coast. Northwest 20 south of Nunivak Island. St. Lawrence Island, west 20, but these will become northwest at probably midday tomorrow. And then light variable winds under high pressure up there for Friday. Easterlies 20 knots for the northern Bering. Southeast 15 for the Pribilofs. Light variable winds into Kuskokwim Bay. For the Arctic coast, south winds 20 knots here for the east side. And then westerlies for the western portions of the east side. West winds back to the central coast, 20 knots. Northwest 20 here after the small craft advisories tonight. And northwest all the way down to the Bering Strait. And then for tonight, front coming in from the northwest, bringing rain with it. Winds will swing around to the northwest. A little cooler air coming in behind. More or less a break right through here. This system shifting eastward with the rain starting to taper off Kodiak Island later tonight. Gusty northwest winds across the peninsula. Rain and wind pushing up toward the North Gulf Coast, shifting into the southeast coast tomorrow afternoon. Right about in this position, but I don't think the bulk of the moisture will move in until tomorrow evening and overnight. This front coming in from the northwest, a little bit better chance of rain, mostly out in this area and along the Alaska range. This front doesn't look too strong for tomorrow, a little bit better on Friday, and then this will move across the Gulf thereafter. The front and some cooler air back behind, but also a lot drier with more sunshine. Well, let's look at the weather. Thanks for joining us.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.